Welcome everyone, this is Honest Restart, and today we're going to be talking about Metroid. What is Nintendo's plan for Metroid now that we are in the middle of 2021? Will we be seeing some sort of Metroid reveal this year? We know that Metroid Prime 4 has been in development for a few years already, and there's been these long-standing rumors for Metroid Prime Trilogy HD and a 2D Metroid. I feel it's also worth mentioning that in recent years, Nintendo's become far more celebratory of its different anniversaries, especially the ones of the 5-year increments, and this year is Metroid's 35th anniversary. So with all these potential looming Metroid games, some are thinking, myself included, that maybe Nintendo might use this anniversary situation potentially to start to market Metroid and reacquaint it to the world and a whole bunch of new fans, since it's a whole new generation. Metroid is an old franchise, and a lot of people that used to play Metroid are adults now, and there's a whole other generation of gamers that could get into this series. So I'm personally of the opinion that Nintendo's being very careful about how they reintroduce this series to the world. Could Nintendo have a plan to get this all started in 2021? I think so. So that's what we're focusing on today. Now before we jump into things, let me quickly talk about my social media. You'll see a few different things here on screen. You can check those all out, they are linked in the description below. And of course, if you like what you're seeing here, you can subscribe. And you want to see most of my content, make sure to hit that notification bell, and if you're feeling gracious, maybe also leave a like. But on to the actual discussion now. What is Nintendo's plan for Metroid? Will we see something in 2021? First off, whenever it comes to Metroid speculation, especially during the Switch era, or even before that, every year we think that maybe this will be the year. This is the year that finally Nintendo will show something. Surely now we'll finally get some sort of Metroid information. That was a perspective in 2020, that was a perspective in 2019, that was a perspective in 2018. Maybe it wasn't the perspective in 2017, but once Nintendo confirmed that Metroid Prime 4 was in development at E3 2017, we got hope that something big and special is coming. And I still think that something big and special is coming, sure. They had to restart development, and they announced that to us at the beginning of 2019. But even assuming that they literally started 100% from scratch, which I doubt, at the very beginning of 2019, which I also doubt was probably a few months before then, we'd still be 2 years past that point. We have to be getting close to a point where they can show off this game to some extent. They absolutely can do that. Metroid Prime 4 is being treated similar to Zelda, in the sense that they have such a high quality standard for this game that they are going to take as long as they can to make sure it is of the utmost quality. They've told us that they want Metroid Prime 4 to measure up to the quality of the original Metroid Prime. The original Metroid Prime is one of the highest rated games of all time, and that is no exaggeration. In other words, for those who aren't familiar with the Metroid series, basically, Metroid Prime is like a first-person space Zelda with shooting. That is kind of how it is. Now, obviously, there's other differences and such, but my point here is that this is one of Nintendo's biggest, most epic adventure games, and this could be something really, really special. This is going to be one of Nintendo's biggest, largest projects ever, similar to Zelda, and it has tons and tons of potential. Game of the Year potential, generation-defining potential. It has the potential to revive Metroid as a whole, and we could be seeing even more amazing Metroid games come even sooner beyond Metroid Prime 4, if Prime 4 ends up being a massive success. So there's a lot riding on the reintroduction of the Metroid series, which I believe will revolve around Metroid Prime 4. I think Nintendo's going to be somewhat careful here. Look at all the different games that have come out on Switch. There are all sorts of sales records being broken for all different types of franchises. Software on Nintendo Switch sells far better than any previous Nintendo system. It is just incredible. Not just Nintendo systems, but just systems as a whole. Games sell on Switch. So if there was ever an opportunity to revive the Metroid series, during the Switch is that time. Which brings a whole other wrinkle into this conversation. How long will it take Nintendo to reintroduce this franchise and give us Metroid Prime 4? Because if they wait too long, we may go past the point of the Switch performing really well and a lot of games thriving in this ecosystem with high sales. And if that happens, the next Nintendo system may not be as successful. If Metroid Prime 4 takes so long that it's a cross-platform release, for example, there's a chance that it could bomb. So I understand you may say, well, why? Cross-platform would make it more successful. Yes, but at the same time, if it's a situation like with the Nintendo Wii, where Nintendo waits to the very, very end, where there's barely any games coming out, and then their next system, the Wii U, comes out, and there isn't a strong lineup and it doesn't perform well, then things wouldn't work out. The end of the Wii's life cycle was not strong, and the Wii U was an entire failure. So theoretically, Nintendo could take so long with Metroid Prime 4 that it could come out at the very end of the Switch's life cycle where sales are just not doing well at all, and Nintendo's next system does not perform well and doesn't have a lot of hype behind it. And what this could create is a situation where Metroid Prime 4 is on two different platforms that aren't conducive to strong sales for the series. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I feel like that's unlikely. Odds are that the Switch will continue to sell well for the next few years. It is performing incredibly well, breaking all sorts of records. I'm pretty sure Prime 4 will make it out in time. And even if it takes so long that it ends up being a cross-platform release with Nintendo's next generation system, who's to say that that next generation system is going to perform poorly? It could also perform well. I think all Nintendo really has to do is just improve upon what they've already established with the Switch. They have a formula for success here. So I don't think it's super likely that Prime 4 will fail, but I'm just saying it's possible. So it is important for Nintendo to be careful about how they introduce this game to the world, but also timing does matter as well in terms of how quickly it takes them to get this game done. But we have seen continual new hires every few weeks or every few months for Retro Studios. They are continually building this team. I am confident that Nintendo is backing Retro Studios as much as they can. Retro Studios is a part of Nintendo, but they are going to support them as much as they can to make sure this game does well. But anyway, the overall point here is that Nintendo wants to be very careful about how they reintroduce the series. So how could they do that? Will it happen in 2021? Yes, a broken clock is correct twice a day. We've been predicting and hoping for Metroid reveals every single year, but I really do think this year is the year. I'm not 100% certain that we'll be seeing Prime 4 revealed this year at this point, but that doesn't mean we won't be seeing some sort of Metroid game this year. For a while, a 2D Metroid has been rumored, and I'm not just saying Reddit's from 4chan or things of that nature. This rumor has been coming from insiders who have gotten other things right as well. These same people have talked about Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, and Mario 3D All-Stars. These games that we were waiting for all throughout 2020 and the beginning of 2021, they did come to a reality. They were suggested to us well beforehand. Same thing with Link's Awakening. These same people have been talking about a 2D Metroid. And here on the channel, we've been talking about it a while as well. There's reason to believe that Mercury Steam, who hasn't had any major projects since 2017 when they released Samus Returns, has probably worked on this 2D Metroid game, and Nintendo's waiting for the right time to release it. I think there's a strong chance that game could be coming out this year. And if it's not that game, there is the other rumored Metroid game, which is Metroid Prime Trilogy. Some people might say that this rumor was fake, but I don't think it was fake. I think, more likely, Prime Trilogy was simply delayed for the Switch because Prime 4 was delayed. Prime Trilogy is the first 3 Prime games in one package. When they reintroduce this game to the world, it's going to be the first modern foray of the Metroid Prime style gameplay, which is important, I would say, because if this game doesn't perform well and isn't coming out not too long before Metroid Prime 4, it might not go over well for Metroid Prime 4. So they want to be careful about when they release Prime Trilogy. They want it to probably come out closer to that hype cycle for Prime 4. So my personal thinking is that once we get to see Prime Trilogy, Nintendo will then be ready to start marketing Prime 4. Maybe not like immediately, but somewhere along those lines. For example, we're getting Skyward Sword HD this year. We also know that there are plans to have an event where there will be a lot of details detailing Breath of the Wild 2. So this is what I'm thinking. This summer, we will be getting Nintendo news. That's going to happen. It may not be exactly in the E3 week. It may not be called an E3 Nintendo Direct. But I do think Nintendo Directs are finally back, as we saw with the February Direct. And around that summertime, that June period, Nintendo will have to give us more news on more games. Because after June, all we know about is July with Skyward Sword HD. There's going to need to be more games announced with some bit of a window before they actually come out to market. So early June, late May, I feel like is around the time where Nintendo may start making more announcements for the rest of their plans for 2021. So if there's any sort of Metroid game coming out this year, probably not Prime 4, but either the 2D Metroid or Prime Trilogy, I feel like they're gonna have to make at least one Metroid announcement this summertime. I feel pretty confident in making that a prediction. I would say that yeah, at least one Metroid game will be announced this summer. By the end of the summer, there will be at least one announced. Now, based off what different insiders have said and kind of how I think this year is going, I do get the sense that it's more likely to expect 2D Metroid. I think if we were going to be getting two different Metroid games this year, we would have known about it by this point. We don't. Nintendo didn't announce anything Metroid during that 50-minute Nintendo Direct, so I'm thinking that there's probably just one Metroid game coming out this year, and it's going to be in the second half of the year. And considering the gameplay style of Prime Trilogy and how it will relate to Prime 4, I'm thinking that they're first going to be giving us this 2D Metroid game, and then after that, they'll be giving us Prime Trilogy, and then after that, there'll be this huge hype advertisement cycle leading up to the eventual release for Metroid Prime 4. Ideally, holiday 2022, but I feel like that's probably a best case scenario. There is a chance it could take even longer. People are thinking that Breath of the Wild 2 won't be coming out till next year, even though the game's been in development since 2017, and it's using the Breath of the Wild engine as a base. I don't agree with that, but it's definitely possible, especially considering the pandemic and things of that nature. Either way, I think the point still stands that it makes sense for 2D Metroid to come out first, because 2D Metroid is a different style of gameplay, and then once they get that out there and just reintroduce the Metroid series as a whole, then we could start thinking about Prime Trilogy and then Prime 4. Now, for a while I've been under the impression that when we get one Metroid reveal, we'll get more than one Metroid reveal, similar to how when they confirmed the development for Metroid Prime 4 back at E3 2017, shortly after, on the same day at the Treehouse, they announced Metroid Samus Returns. I think Nintendo learned a lesson from the reveal from Metroid Federation Force. That did not go over well. It was a chibi-style Metroid spin-off that came out, I believe, back in 2015, if I remember correctly. And people were not excited about that because it was not what we were hoping for a Metroid Prime-style kind of game, and there was no confirmation whatsoever that a Metroid Prime game was in the works, the bigger, more exciting game. But anyway, because of that, I do think there's a good chance Nintendo may consider announcing more than one Metroid game or showing off more than one Metroid game at a time. An E3 style Direct makes sense to have some major reveals. I could see a situation where they show off 2D Metroid, maybe Prime Trilogy, or they give us a teaser for Prime 4 similar to the teaser we got for Breath of the Wild 2. That I think is a possibility. Consider that even if Breath of the Wild 2 does make it out for holiday 2021, which I do think is a possibility, that is my prediction, they teased that game back at E3 2019. So Prime 4 teaser this year, even if it's coming out in 2023, isn't really too crazy. But I gotta tell you, I feel like revealing 2D Metroid and then Prime Trilogy and then teasing Prime 4 when there are supposedly a lot of Zelda anniversary plans and other games to talk about this year, that might be too much. They might have to spread things out a little bit. And there is an important distinction to make between now and the past. In the past, when they announced Federation Force, there was no knowledge of a Prime game being in development. We have that knowledge now. We know that Prime 4 has been in development, so even if they just announced 2D Metroid, they could probably get away with showing that off and just saying, hey look, we know you guys are looking forward to Metroid Prime 4, we'll be talking about this at a later date. Similar to how Nintendo revealed Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and Eiji Aonuma said, hey look, we know you're excited for Breath of the Wild 2, we'll be talking about it at a later date, and then they did it again when they showed off Skyward Sword HD, and they said we'll be giving more details for this game later this year. So right now, my thinking is, at E3, we will get one Metroid game revealed. I believe it'll be 2D Metroid. Maybe Metroid 5. But anyway, I think they'll show this game off, and then they'll say, hey look, we know you guys are excited for Metroid Prime 4, don't worry, development is going smoothly, we will talk about this game at a later date. And that'll be it. It won't be much, but it'll be something. But hold on, that doesn't mean we won't get more Metroid news this year. The 2D Metroid game I think is going to be a very exciting, fun game, I'm looking forward to it, assuming it's real. But there's still some opportunity, I think, to talk about more Metroid this year. Especially if we're really lucky and Prime 4 is going to be coming out around holiday 2022. That may not be the case, but if it is, I do think we might be seeing more of Prime 4 or something of Prime 4 at some point this year, but not necessarily E3. So the other wrinkle in this discussion here that we should bring up is the rumors of this Switch revision, this new Switch with a bigger OLED screen and 4K capabilities. 2D Metroid isn't necessarily the kind of game you would market for a 4K system, but a Metroid Prime game? Yeah, you would. Now, during the podcast a few days ago with Brandon from WhataboutNodnarb, I'll link his channel in the description below. He has some great ideas and he does stream occasionally, so check him out. We were talking about how it might make sense for there to be a separate event after a summer direct where they showcase this new Switch revision with 4K capabilities. Maybe they'd want to focus this event on highlighting games with 4K visuals, maybe a couple third-party exclusives, maybe like a Tomb Raider game or a Resident Evil game, but then also showing off some games that wouldn't be exclusive but have a 4K optimized version for this new Switch. One example being Breath of the Wild 2, but a few other examples can maybe be Bayonetta 3 or a new Xenoblade game, or a Metroid Prime game. Maybe they finally show off Metroid Prime Trilogy and they announce that to be coming out early 2022. And not only will it be in HD, it'll be in 4K. That could be something really nice to show to fans, that would also excite people into maybe getting this Switch revision. Not saying it'll be an exclusive, just to be clear, but it could very well have a 4K optimized version. And if they show off Prime Trilogy, they could also theoretically show off Prime 4, which of course would be even more of a showstopper, even more of a graphical showcase. But we might be a little far off, so they might not give us too much gameplay there. So that's one place where we might see more Metroid reveals. But there's another place where we can maybe see some Metroid reveals, and that's the Game Awards. Now what's funny about this is that supposedly we're going to get some Metroid reveals at the Game Awards back at Game Awards of 2018, December 2018, but that didn't happen. Then a month later, they announced the restart for Metroid Prime 4. I feel like that's not a coincidence. I think maybe at one point there were plans to have a Metroid reveal at the Game Awards, hence all the different teases with Reggie wearing the different Metroid shirts and the rumors, but it was pulled because of the delay for Metroid Prime 4. So maybe Nintendo will save some sort of Metroid reveal for the Game Awards. I think that makes sense. It's the kind of game that would fit really well with that audience, and on top of that, if they have a 4K version of Metroid Prime 4 to show off, that would look really good and definitely would position Nintendo really well amongst the gaming community, especially with PS5 and Xbox Series X having their own epic, amazing looking games. Now you might argue, well, we usually just get Smash reveals at the Game Awards. Yeah, we do, but Smash is going to be done. Fire Pass Volume 2 is ending this year. We're just 2 characters away, and the last 3 characters have only been separated by about 2.5 months each. If you do the math, Fire Pass Volume 2 will be done long before December of 2021. Now it's possible we could get Virus Pass Volume 3, but I don't think that's happening, and assuming I'm right there, Nintendo's gonna need something else to hype up fans. Before Smash, it was Breath of the Wild at the Game Awards, and then it became Smash Brothers. What's after that? Maybe it's Metroid. So between a potential reveal of a Metroid game at a summer-style E3 Direct this year, a presentation or smallish event where they're talking about this 4K Switch system which has been supported by Bloomberg with several reports, they can maybe show it off there, or it could be at the Game Awards where Nintendo will need another hardcore style kind of game, since Smash Bros. Will likely be done with its DLC reveals. Those are all possibilities for potential Metroid reveals. I'm feeling pretty confident that at the very least we get something Metroid this year, especially with the 35th anniversary around the corner, but obviously only time will really tell. What do you guys think? Do you guys think a Metroid reveal is around the corner? Do you guys think we'd be seeing more than one Metroid game this year? And do you think these Metroid games are far off? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways everyone, this is Honest Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.